We now begin with the Human Excellence track in this auditorium. Our first panel of the Human Excellence track focuses on the theme, how to successfully build and maintain employee engagement in a disrupted world. I would like to introduce you to the moderator of this session, Ms. Subhalakshmi Ganguly, Head Global Sales Compensation and Asia Pacific Rewards, Lenovo.
Thank you.
Subhalakshmi has close to 20 years of experience and expertise in leading compensation, benefits, and mobility functions in global corporations. Let's warmly now welcome our other esteemed panelists. Ms. Seema Singh, CHRO and CFO, India Post Payments Bank. Seema handles the entire gamut of human resource management and development with an experience of more than 33 years and expertise in implementing open door policy for all employees to manage and mitigate process and cultural related challenges. Mr. Ajay Chowdhury, President and CHRO SRF. Ajay is a strategic leader with an experience of more than 30 years in HR and people's management. Ms. Shikha Gupta, Director HR, Business Partner and D&I International Operations, Schneider Electric. Shikha is known for driving people strategies, maximizing potential, and enabling businesses to deliver great results. Ms. Ruchita Mehra, Director, Communications, CSR and Digital, Procter & Gamble Health. Ruchita is a strong proponent of the power of communications in driving business outcomes and building organizational image and culture, with an experience of more than 15 years. Ms. Shweta Shukla, Director, People and Capability Partner, Mastercard. Shweta, with an experience of more than 19 years, is skilled in talent management, HR consulting, coaching, and employee engagement, with a demonstrated history of working in the information technology and services industry. Ms. Divyasree Pawar, Global Head, Learning Delivery, Intel Corporation. Divyasree has close to 2 decades of experience in the learning and development space. She leads a global team spread across several geographies. Last but never the least, Ms. Deepa Chadha, SVP, HR and Corporate Affairs, Vistara, TATA, SIA, Airlines. Deepa brings with her 20 years of leadership experience working across different dimensions of people function in telecom, software, KPO, pharma, e-commerce, and airline industry. And now it's over to our efficient moderator. Subhalakshmi, you'll have to unmute yourself.
I'm so sorry. Yes, okay. Thank you.
Over to you.
Thank you, Arkan. Thank you, everyone, and Kamikaze for giving us this platform to assemble and share our thoughts. I think this is a topic that all corporates are grappling with, how to deal with the new normal, right? I mean, a disruption today, more than anything else, like it can always be caused by an innovative disruption, the organizational strategies and transformations initiatives that organizations keep taking time to time. More than that, I think what has magnified the issue to deal with the new normal is the pandemic. Now, what we are trying to address, what we are going to try to address through today's meeting is how our companies, and both ways, right? I mean, there are some expectations from employees and there are some expectations from the company itself. How are we going to address employee engagement in this new normal? Typically, what my personal experience has said that companies, what do companies want really? They want to attract, engage, motivate, and retain talent in this new normal. They are mostly business houses, so they have to make money. So they have to drive higher or at least the same level of productivity and efficiency. At the same time, not compromising the employee morale. A new thing that has come is the diversity and inclusion that has become more important than anything else. And the other part, in the new normal, the business risk management, right? The data security, protection, and the IT enablement has become very important. And if you look at from the employee's perspective, you know, more flexible policies, guidance, etc., is very important as today. Health and safety for oneself and the family is important. And obviously, they also want to be enabled with better infrastructure and etc. for them to support their work in the remote work life. So I think I'll not talk much about this. We have an expert set of panelists. Let me start with the question, and if we could get more organization-specific examples, nothing like that. What do you think are the specific aspects of employee engagement that you believe are important in the new normal? So I'll open the forum. Anyone who wants to go first, maybe Divya, would you want to take a tab on this?
Yeah, I want to spend a moment on just the disrupted environment, right? And what does that look like? One of the key elements of this disrupted world is the digital transformation that has happened. With the recent COVID situation, it has accelerated the digital transformation further for us. And for Intel as a technology company, data has become much, much more important than it ever was. Closer to home with learning and development, the world that I come from, the disruption has led to us, the work from home situation has led to employees moving towards a lot more online learning. While initially there was a preference of face-to-face learning, now all of the learning is either digital or online. And the business case has also become a lot stronger for us to move to digital learning, and therefore the investment in content and content providers. Now, coming to employee engagement, I think there are so many factors that attribute to it. And I know we're going to spend the whole hour talking about this. And some that I want to call out are things like how do we keep that connection with employees in this disrupted world? To me, that has felt like the most important element. With employees working from home and being dispersed, how do we keep that connection and still have them focused on the company culture and values and driving towards the purpose of the company is so important. Back to you, Subhalakshmi.
Okay, thanks, Divya. Shweta, do you see similar as well, and how have you been addressing? What are the aspects that you think are important in this time?
So I work with an organization which is focused towards making payments seamlessly. And in fact, for us, 2020 was a boon because it just enhanced our innovation in terms of how could we digitize our payments. People are conservative in terms of using cash or stepping out. And if we see, I'm sure most of us are shopping online. So how could we make it more safe, more easy? Now, as Divya mentioned, that digital experience has a direct correlation to employee engagement. And when we talk about employee engagement, it is the emotional commitment of an employee to the organization and its goal. And it's important for us to ensure that they have a seamless experience, whether it is professional or it is personal. In fact, when I was reading one of the Salesforce study, it does mention about 71% of the employees want the company that they work to provide the same level of technology as they use in their personal lives. 78% of IT leaders say that projects related to digital employee experience are a higher priority as compared to previous years in the last 2 years. And high-performing companies are times more likely to rate improving the employee experience as a critical priority. So I would say that yes, the organization has invested a lot in terms of whether it is collaborative communication, recruitment channels, total rewards and benefits. digital accounting and travel. So these are the various facets where the organization has invested in making the employee experience, the digital experience, much more enhanced.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Ajay, would you share your thoughts as well?
Yeah, thanks. So I think the story was pretty much the same for everyone in terms of the use of technology and the digitalization and everything sort of going virtual. So we're a manufacturing organization, and fortunately, we are in we're connected to the essential goods and services bandwagon. So we were back pretty much. I think in about a week's time we were back. So our problem was essentially with the people who were based in offices. So out of the 7,000 people that we have, I think the people who were in offices, let's say roughly about 500 people. So I'll concentrate on that bunch because I think that's the one that got hit by the disruption the most. So on the softer side, the two things which were uppermost in our minds were that everyone was going through the same thing. This was not like it's the difficult times are for a particular band or a particular level or a particular category or whatever. Everyone was in the same boat. So the things that we were trying to address were fear and loneliness. And I think the direction that we had given to our HR team was that no employee should feel that he's alone in the world or he's helpless. So the decision making sort of went down drastically. And we said that whatever it takes, no questions asked, whether it's money or it's resources or whatever you need to pull together, just do that and make sure that the employee feels belonged and cared for. And I think that is the aspect of engagement that we were trying to address.
That's very wonderful. Ajay, I'll come back to you on what specific interventions you have done, because in a manufacturing setup, right, I mean, you have to deal with two sets of worlds. One set of world where you can actually enable them with technology and enablement, and you can probably partially, if not fully, address the fear and loneliness. But the other part, who actually have to brave the pandemic and go to office because their work has to keep running. So maybe I'll come back to you after some time to understand how you have addressed both these worlds.
Sure.
Seema, do you have any thoughts about what your organization has really looked in terms of employee engagement?
So unlike most of the offices where people were working from home, we had a big force of 200,000 people working on the ground. Basically, at the time of pandemic, it was a national call to ensure people keep getting money on their doorstep, which was done through my bank. We have around 300,000 BCs which are postmen and the rural postmen who went all the way to the last corner of the country to enable people to get the money. So my biggest responsibility of keeping them engaged. So what we did was, of course, we had to make these processes very simple. The learning and development videos and the simulations were made extremely simple for people to understand. And also we inculcated them the responsibility of national cause right now. So at that point, when we made people feel responsible to enable people to get money in these difficult times, or to remit monies to the children who are in the far other corners of the country for their fees or any other remittances, or the migrant laborers who were in the cities, stuck in the cities, but their families were in the villages. So all that was the time which was very, very challenging. And then came the role of the people who were on the ground, and they, went all the way to giving doorstep services so that people don't have to step out the houses. We have catered to the senior citizens who were receiving pensions but could not go to the banks and post offices to get the patient. So to their residences and gave them the doorstep services. So all that happened, and that has been appreciated by one and all. You will be surprised to know that the Department of Post, along with the banks, using the bank's platform, have done 4 crore transactions to the tune of 10,000 crores of value, which were all digital. So that helped us, we had to keep their morale high, and also we had to keep them aware of all the guidelines which were coming from the government for social distancing, for sanitizing. So even if they were using a micro ATM or a mobile phone and a biometric device, we had to tell them how it is to be sanitized after every transaction, because somebody who's putting a biometric at a particular time cannot be used for the other person. So there were a lot of things, but it has been a good challenge and it has been a good journey.
So Seema, I'll just like to ask you a little bit add on here. So when you were talking about your entire workforce has really made this happen, it must have created additional workload in a spurt for your entire workforce, right? And have you seen, what kind of challenges have you really seen? What kind of engagement parameters that you would have addressed at that point in time?
See, the basic challenge was to keep the technology up and running.
Okay.
And the second challenge was to keep them aware of the processes which have to be followed in compliance with the Reserve Bank of India guidelines. And also the third challenge was to keep them aware of the social distancing norms, along with the sanitization, sanitizers. So these were certain things which there were challenges.
Even for employees as well, not only
Yes.
for your end customers. Got it. Yes. Okay. Okay. Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Seema. Shikha, what are your views or thoughts about this? How have you experienced?
Sure. Okay. So, well, just a quick context that at Schneider, we are sort of traversing the journey between manufacturing, very high-end technology work in our R&D setup, and then very customer-facing roles in terms of our sales people and services people. So, like you said early on, the challenges and the disruption we've had is sort of multifold and very. While I agree that it was a same situation for everybody was going through same challenges, but in a way it was unique for each individual, depending on the context, on the professional and the personal context. So, for example, we had, and I'm not going to repeat what people have already said, for sure that that all happened. But one unique challenge, for example, we had infrastructure challenges, and some of the Schneider products and hence factories were declared as essential services, especially the UPS, because we had to keep the power going when everybody was working from home. And similarly, the field services, as we call it, are technicians who go door to door servicing the products that customers have had at their premises. And by the way, some of the customers are in our critical buildings, for example, data centers and hospitals and so on. So we had our field service engineers who were continuously on the job, even through the lockdown with special permission. But we had infrastructure issues, how to get them from their place to the customer side with safety and how to get them back. Because normally they would have used a pool of vehicles, or they would have used public transport or whatever. So we had to, and at that time, many of the transport service providers were also not very active. So how to make sure that and I guess Seema would have experienced similar challenge in mobilizing such a large force into remote corners of the country. So I have had examples where, our service engineers have taken bicycle and they have sort of traveled a distance of 50 kilometers to and fro on the bicycle to just reach the customer place and service the hospital UPS setup over there to make sure that any of the essential services are not impacted. And ranging from there, coming to our R&D organization, where we have had the challenge how to keep our labs going, because some of the products are undergoing upgradation at this point in time globally. And because Europe was hit more strongly and probably a little early on in the curve, and we came in later. So there was a lot of expectation shifting from, let's say, US and Europe onto India to how to keep the labs going, because these are all sometimes high current labs. These are high tension labs. So we need the proper technicians and infrastructure to keep that going. Those are two things which I thought were additional over and above what everybody said. And lastly, there was fear, for sure, fear of safety and health, and fear for their family safety, etc. but also fear of, especially in our sales workforce, fear of not being able to perform. We know that sales engineers on the ground is more about the day-to-day targets and the expectations that they meet, and hence the incentives and so on and so forth. So how do we address that fear to keep them still engaged and motivated? Most of the customers were not allowing people to come for demos, etc., on their site. So how do we make sure that still customer connect is maintained? And this is a high customer intensive business, So how do we keep engaging with the customer? How do we make sure that not only the employee experience and engagement, but also the customer experience and engagement is sustained during this time? Just to give you an example, why we definitely shifted 100% to the digital learning mode, like Seema mentioned, but also we shifted to customer engagement mode in a virtual manner. And I have a data which says 100,000 hours of customer engagement that we did in a single year virtually, which would have been almost probably 1/3 of it in a normal year when we were meeting customers face to face. So I'd stop there. There's long list of disruption that has happened, but I think these were some of the unique ones worth highlighting.
Wonderful. Indeed, wonderful. Thank you so much, Shikha. Ruchita?
So I'm representing P&G Health. So we were the healthcare industry. And as you can imagine, the industry has been active and running over the last few months. So I think there was not a moment to lose, because we could not simply have a situation where our medicines were not available. So the manufacturing side had to be active. The team had to be meeting customers. So that is what we need to deliver. And what is the disruption happening? So I represent the OTX industry. So yes, a few of our products are OTC, which essentially do not really need a lot of face-to-face connect. But a large part of our portfolio depends on our teams actually meeting our customers, detailing our products to them, having a scientific exchange. And that's how business happens. And overnight, your entire model is disrupted, because, your entire huge sales team that's all over the country can no longer reach out to the customer. The customer, which are our doctors in that case, are themselves dealing with a whole lot of other things. And so what is my employee feeling? Life as he or she knows it has changed overnight. You still have to deliver, because healthcare has to go. So this was a disruption like no other. I mean, to ask a sales team to work from home is something I don't think has ever happened. So I think that was the challenge that we had to kind of support the teams on. Let me also talk about the disruption that we faced, right? So as a communications leader, and I'm also responsible for culture, working closely with my HR team. And for us at P&G, employee engagement is a key business driver. I'm sure it is for all companies, but we kind of have it in our top 3 to 4 key priority areas. And we literally do it so intensively. Probably I can share that it may be probably the most intensive in the industry. And we've done it through various offline and online mediums. So again, the way we did it, and that used to be one of our we have a great, in terms of our surveys, a great employee engagement rate. And now suddenly I can't do all those things. So there is the need. My employees are, wanting things. And there is a way that we know how to do it, but now we have to change. So disruption literally happened at all levels, and especially when we had to keep also business continuity. So I think necessity is the mother of invention. I think it was innovation overnight. And the focus was how to keep business as usual, do it in the same creative manner, in the same innovative manner, ensuring the connectivity still stays, ensuring employees understand that we are all in it together. Yes, we will face challenges, but we will overcome them together. And overall, the focus being that we will ensure that the medicines reach where they have to. So a lot has been done. And probably when we come, we move forward in the discussion, I could probably talk about it in terms of the culture aspect, in terms of the engagement aspects.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ruchita. Deepa?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Deepa here from Vistara. I represent Vistara, the airline brought to you by TATA and Singapore Airlines. I think most challenging, most unprecedented, exceptional year from experience perspective for all of us, 2020. And at a more macro level, there are different industries which are impacted, with a different kind of a severity. So there have been some which have been insulated, whether it's telecom, software, and business has, went on smoothly. And there are others which have, seen the V-shaped kind of a recovery, and there are others, and this group like us, which is travel and tourism, which has been worst hit as far as the pandemic is concerned. There have been different disruptions in the business models, some which are induced, some which are positive, which the organizations have had to adapt. And particularly in my industry, traditionally, which has been like an FSC or a full service carrier in terms of something which is more premium, which is more, experiential from an air travel perspective, very aspirational for people. And then there was a disruption of LCC or a low-cost carrier, different channels coming in terms of either going through the travel agents versus, utilizing online channels. So those are the disruptions which over the years, the industry has, experienced. But the pandemic has been, of course, the worst and the most challenging of all for the travel and tourism industry, undoubtedly. IATA, in fact, projected that until 2024, the airline industry is not going to come back to its pre-COVID levels. 2020 itself has seen 55% of drop in the PAX, in the passenger, capacity. Load factors have been maybe 40-50% for international and maybe 60-70% now hovering around for domestic sector. So Q1, Q2, Q1 has been a washout for the entire sector. I mean, April, May, June, as we all know, it was actually zero operations, zero revenue. And Q2 seeing some signs of hope from a business context with 20-30%, some silver lining there. And of course, Q3 has been very hopeful, very optimistic, and that's where we are right now in terms of the government allowing us to do 80% of fly, 80% of our capacity. Now, in the backdrop of all this, which is obviously has been very, very challenging, are people issues and people challenges. I could, hear a lot of experiences from my peers from the industry, which are very unique to them, and for us specifically. I know it was like one fine day, mid of March, that the lockdown is announced, and you're planning, from morning till evening now, how to shut the offices, how to get your people back who are in different parts of the world, your staff back, how to get your customers back to, to their respective hometowns and, where they belong. And that phase gets over, and then it's about maybe also planning the interim phase of the lockdown in terms of guarding your aircraft. So it's a security personnel who still needs to go on a night duty or a day duty to guard the aircraft at the airport. It is the pilots and the cabin crew who still need to go to the airport as part of their essential services to take on some urgent flights for cargo and, transporting medicines from one location to the other. And while all this is happening, they have their unique experiences, of course, being stopped by the cops on the way and still finding their way through, in all this uncertainty and doing their, doing their duty well. So I think each one are full of a lot of stories which are unprecedented in terms of experiences which are unique to our kind of context. But I think I'll not get into now talking about the future, because I'm sure that's another question which Subhalakshmi would have planned. It's been a great learning, and how we have been managing it. I think the other experiences of engaging with our staff through digitalization, work from home, managing their peers, health, of course, is the most important of all. We launched a specific program of Vistara Care to be connected to our staff. So I'll talk about that more as we go around. Over to you, Subhalakshmi. Thank you.
You're on mute, Subhalakshmi.
My bad. I'm so sorry. I think what we have learned so far, I mean, personally to me, has been extremely fascinating, and thank you so much for sharing your specific examples. I think we have a diverse panel from diverse industries, and each industry, I'm sure we learned how has faced this challenge very uniquely. So I'll come back to the employee engagement part once again. So if we look at the entire employee life cycle, starting from hiring to the various HR programs and HR interventions, and last but not the least, the culture part of it, would you be able to share specific examples in each of these employee life cycle areas in terms of what engagement interventions you have done, and if you have been able to measure that, and how successful they have been? So, Divya, if I can start with you, especially from a technology industry point of view, have you done any specific intervention? You spoke about digital transformation and the culture aspect in Intel. Do you have anything to share about how you have addressed or approached the hiring part of it in the employee life cycle?
Yeah, thanks, Subhalakshmi. I think we made minor changes to our approach, but I want to start with, for just a moment, talking about what is employee engagement. If I have to define it in the simplest terms, it is an employee wanting to give their best for the company and voluntarily extending that discretionary effort to go above and beyond. How wonderful it would be, right, if an organization had every employee that is fully committed to the success of the company. And how does that happen? It happens through a partnership between the employer and the employee, where the employer is willing to go above and beyond in investing for the employee, and the employee is going above and beyond in giving their best to the company. And Intel does such a wonderful job at this, and has been a great place to work for several years. When I talk about hiring as such, a few changes. One element that has always been there and continues to be is the look for culture. Of course, we look for people that have the right skills, but looking for, does the individual's culture or values match and resonate with the company values, is an important element that we assess for. And I know a lot of companies do that too. The one factor that I would say became even more important is looking for scalability, looking for, given during this pandemic, we have landed up upskilling and reskilling a lot of our talent, the ability to learn quickly, learning agility, having a growth mindset. These are elements that become even more important during phases like this. So when I look at hiring someone, I would look for how quickly are they willing to learn and able to learn. And this is one element that I might call out as a change due to the disrupted environment, especially due to COVID.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Divya. Coming back to the effectiveness of hiring, have you really seen this tweak in your approach yielding results? Has it been evident so early? Because we have just started this entire new normal journey. Is there something that you can speak about?
Yeah, I don't think we've yet begun to measure, because I would imagine we've definitely seen with reskilling the talent within the organization, we've seen that yield benefits, because we've been able to reposition employees that were doing a certain kind of work, especially within my organization that I manage, with a lot of our learning being focused on face-to-face. We've now shifted that to online learning, to digital learning. We've converted a lot of our face-to-face learning content to online. So ensuring that our organization, the design team, the deployment team are able to support it, reskilling them in that sense has been critical, and we've been successful at that. However, us applying that to hiring, and have we been able to see that as a benefit, I don't think we've measured that as such yet.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Divya. Shweta, you spoke about the digital transformation that happened in the industry, the banking industry per se, and that would automatically have had a repercussion on your employee engagement part. And I would really imagine that you would be taking a lot of data-based decision using analytical tools or even integrating technology and platform. Would you be able to share any specific example for that? Or how have you measured, or if there are specific business outcome that you have observed out of that?
Sure. So, when we talk about Mastercard, it definitely is a diverse organization. We do have employees from the consulting, sales and marketing, technology areas, and it's not a pure play technology organization. When we were designing and implementing digital tools or platforms, we were ensuring that it's catering to all these diverse section of population. Some of the examples were that, early on, I think so we were during the around May, June and July, we were figuring out what exactly needs to be done. And rather than thinking of, amongst ourselves, it was important to hear from the employees. And we do have these, pulse check-ins every quarter. And during that, and somewhere, we were able to also design our questions in such a manner that we could get the voice of the employee. So we could see that there was too much of pressure, stress. When we talk about the technology people, they were almost like seated inside the house. Sales marketing had their own challenges. So we figured out they wanted support in terms of their home care, their own personal situation. In fact, also in terms of their career enhancement. So as an organization, what we did was we have set up an AI team in Gurgaon, and this is, it's been around 2 years. We took their help, and I'll take an example of career enhancement. So we said, okay, how are we going to see what kind of skills, what is the kind of tenure, what is the kind of various skills, technology, tenure, backgrounds. There was this AI which picked up information from different platforms, and it gave us a landscape of talent, so that we know that what kind of interventions would we like to do, what kind of upskilling stuff that we need to do within the organization. And fortunately, for us, the business was still setting up in India. So there were a lot of businesses, because of the change, they decided to set up their base in India. So what happened was that we also were encouraging employees to look at those opportunities, upskill themselves, whatever is happening. The second example is we launched something as Mastercard Kids Club. Now there, what we did was, parents are working at home, and we don't have childcare support. So all the house helps were not coming to home. In that situation, we tied up with some of these providers and provided children with online support in terms of STEM or other life skills, whether it is dance, it is cooking, anything like that. So, the parents can actually focus on their work and the kids could be engaged. We also, looking at the stress levels, we also went ahead and had tie-up with some of the providers who would actually look at the mental and physical well-being. We ensured that there are these calendars and one-to-one sessions which are being organized based on the needs. And there are different, so there were stress levels, there were people feeling loneliness. So how could we cater to those? So these service providers were actually helping us in catering. So we did have mobile apps, we did have platforms, web pages, where employees can actually go ahead and have those interactions. So I would say that we definitely went a step ahead in integrating our platforms, making it more digitized, more seamless, so that the employees can have a much better experience. In fact, we were able to gauge, there was a huge traction when we did Mastercard Kids Club. Parents had I think so we had around 87% of engagement from the employees. As far as employee well-being was concerned, it also became a platform for collaboration between employees. We had indoor things where people are running inside the house, or they are doing certain activities where they're counting their calories and kind of doing the competition. So there were various elements which actually worked out beautifully out of these interventions.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Shweta. Ajay, I'll come back to you now. You spoke about the manufacturing organization, and you also spoke about the disruption that caused in the other part of the organization, who were mainly office-bound organization. What kind of initiatives have you really taken to manage both these sides? And have you taken anything? I mean, how has probably the data-driven decision-making, analytics, HR digitalization that we spoke about has really played a role?
See, one is that, so I'll take that at 2-3 levels. One is the drive towards automation and digitization that had obviously, that had already started some years back. But what happened now was the pace of conversion to digitization and getting more and more things under virtualization or automation, that intensified at an amazing speed. So everything that we could, we were driving through the machine rather than the person. And I think what went hand in hand was the fact that we knew that we can't replace the human interaction with this. So as I said, we made sure that no SRFI felt alone or lonely in the world. So we created sort of groups led by managers and all the way down who were in interaction with people on a daily basis. On the infrastructure front, a lot needed to be done because we had to shut down one unit totally, our shared services, because we didn't have, small things like this matter, that we didn't have enough laptops for those guys. And no one thought in the normal times, no one thought that laptops were required. So we had to shift all the desktops to their homes. And the unfortunate bit in, I guess, around the world is that homes were never designed to function as offices. And I struggle myself. I'm at home today, but just by chance, I like working out of office, and so a lot of things that one didn't think of earlier. So infrastructure, are you connected or not, and what kind of needs do you have to be able to work effectively and efficiently for home? We made sure that we followed the office hours, because the other thing that happened was that the difference between the work day and the your day, your own day, that sort of disappeared, because people just assumed that you've got the machine, you're working from home anyway. So why don't I throw my weight around and call this guy, poor guy, at 9 o'clock and say, can you process this for me now? In normal times, I would have waited till the next day, because that was the routine. The people came in, they checked in, they logged in, they sat down on their seats, and that is when you were supposed to ask them to work. But now I wake up at 7 and I call the guy at 7, and someone else senior enough wakes up at 12 and he works till 10 in the night. So that guy's official working day is 7 to 10. And so a lot of these small things that in manufacturing, what happened was, again, unfortunately, because this was new for everyone, the authorities were sort of going all over the place. So today they had this direction, and the next day they had the other advisory, and unique situations. 3 or 4 of our plants, I think, sort of operate out of 2 districts, and the decision making at that time was down to the district level. So I have a plant where the guy is allowing me to work, but my workforce is in the other district, and that DC says that buses can't move. So we had to literally hire entire cities, not cities in that sense, but small cities next to our plants, and make people stay there. Because once you're in there, you have to we had to make for 150 people, we have to make makeshift arrangements for them to sleep and to bathe and to do whatever, because they weren't allowed to move out of the factory once they were in. And the biggest thing I think that we that sort of came out was the decision making, as I said, went down drastically. The level of decision making went down drastically. So everyone started owning their team, because again, everyone was in the same boat and everyone was afraid and everyone was. So a lot of things, decision making in terms of in the offices, the automation and the analytics, we had to figure out the entire demographics of these 500 people. Who lives where? Is he in Delhi or not? Will he be allowed to come in? Who needs to get a pass? Who doesn't need to get a pass? Who's married? Who's not married? Who's got old parents at home? Because those were the people that we were sort of not allowing to work. If you've got old people or if you've got young kids. So all of that happened through analytics. And we obviously, no one looks at your population like that because it's not required. But now a lot more factors came into play. And thanks to the IT department also, they really helped in these times, and the kind of services that the service levels and the orientation that they displayed was, I don't think the organization had seen that before that, because it wasn't required so much. If I don't have this, then I just go and do my paperwork instead of. But now everyone was totally dependent on this, and our printing came down by 70%, and I don't know how that happened, because why were we printing that much if it wasn't required? If we could make do, the business kept running. 70% is the drop in the printing. So I don't know, strange times, but I think the resilience and the ownership that people displayed. So the fear was that if people in Delhi or Gurgaon, if they're not asked to come to work, why am I? Is my life not as important? That was the the undercurrent sort of, and that had to be tackled by the leadership at those levels, saying that we are coming to work, and the importance of that job, because as I said, we were linked to some essential services and goods. The importance and the meaning of that job suddenly came to the fore. Earlier it was a 9 to 5. Now it was like, I am contributing to something, and so the bigger picture, and I think that helped. So yes, as I said, strange times, a lot of things that needed to be done, a lot of things that we thought couldn't be done. We never thought that we could start the shift with half the manpower, but we had to do that because the buses weren't allowed to ply at full capacity. So only half a bus could come in, and the city didn't have enough buses for every industry to double their bus count. So buses had to make 2 rounds, and we survived. And so a lot of things that we weren't able to think earlier, they suddenly became reality, and no one even noticed.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ajay. Seema, we heard you talking about the last mile reach, or how you really enabled people in terms of even teaching them about social distancing, etc. Have you done anything specific, especially in the compensation benefits or reward recognition, or any that kind of a employee engagement model?
See, we are a public sector entity. So for my own, I have not actually done anything special on the compensation, because it's a very structured system.
Correct.
The business correspondents, which I talked about, were the postmen and the rural postmen called Gramin Dak Sevaks. There is an incentive structure which is there, and we ensured that they could even view their incentives on the real-time basis. For every account opening to every transaction, everything is incentivized, and they can have they can really see what they have been earning for the month. Over and above, what we did was engaged. We had with the this National Skill Development Council has a scheme under which we recognize their learning. Now, recognizing their learning was to upgrade their knowledge. So for which they were given around 20 simple videos, which they had, after which they had to take a test, for which there was an incentive, additional incentive to be given. Over and above, the incentive, which was very important, was the insurance of 200,000 rupees for them, and for which some of the rural people who fell, unfortunately fell to the there was a casualty for COVID and all, they were compensated, and the insurance claims, we ensured that the insurance claims are reaching to them, which is very much required at that time. We ensured all that to happen. So these were small gestures, but they made a lot of difference. Over and above, what we did was, of course, you're talking of pay, but we wanted to pass a message to each one of them that we want to be connected. We want to be connected, and we are worried about their wellness. So this message was time and again going from us, from the ministry, because there was so much of risk on the ground. So pay structure plus insurance and the messages really did help us get the work done.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Seema. Shikha, you spoke about the enabling the infrastructure piece, right? How to even make employees reach the customer side, because a lot of your the products maybe would have been, say, for example, you gave the example of UPS that were a essential services product. Any specific engagement initiatives that you have done in the employee well-being, or to make them upkeep their morale?
Yeah, sure. In fact, there was an added complexity for us at Schneider that we have acquired a part of L&T business, the low voltage and medium voltage business. And that happened right at the peak of the lockdown. So we had that activity going on. We had the integration started. And we had this situation, plus, that there were some natural calamities also. For example, the situation in Chennai at one point in time, where we have a large factory, actually a large UPS factory in Chennai. So there was all these added complexities. And while I'm not saying that, the situation was any easier for anyone, the point again I want to reiterate is that for every single employee, the situation is different, even during the pandemic at its peak. So, for example, our branding lady with a 10-month-old baby, I cannot compare her situation to our technical architect who is living with his wife and the son is in college. The situations are very, very different. So our first point was, let's recognize that while the environment or the pandemic that we are dealing with is the same, each one is experiencing it differently, and hence we cannot have one size fits all. So there were a lot of initiatives that were done. In fact, I think in hindsight, what probably helped us a bit more is that our well-being journey started almost 7 years back. When well-being was a topic that was just evolving.
Concept, yeah.
And I remember we had tied up with a global organization at that time, which was talking about social, mental, physical, and emotional well-being 7 years back. So that's the journey we had started then, and for sure we've matured a lot in that journey, and that I think helped us because we were able to quickly pivot it and contextualize it to the situation that we were in, especially on mental well-being, because we already had tie-ups local and global for specific counseling to employees. Employees were very well aware, and mental counseling is not a taboo, at least as a culture in the organization. Not so in the country. Still, mental counseling is perceived as something that people don't want to talk about. But thankfully, in the last 2-3 years, that culture has set in, and so people were more than willing to utilize the services that were being offered. I think one thing that we did over and above was we also identified inside the organization some go-to people, and we call them guiding stars. These are the people who are not counselors. I mean, you need a lot of skill and certification to be a counselor, but these are the people who can be your first go-to person in case you're facing any stress or any situation, and you just want to bounce it off somebody, and you don't still want to go to a counselor for a detailed session. So we identified those people. We took help from our partner, the employee assistance partner, to train these people to do the first level of advising, and also helping them connect to the counseling, build more confidence in seeking help, and not just relying that somebody will call me and help me. So that was one thing that we did. We also had a concept of something called well-being labs that had started almost 5 years back. These are small groups of people who work as support network for each other. And also, I think Shweta mentioned about some of the activities that employees were doing together. So these are more formal mechanisms of doing those, driven by the employees themselves. So it is not seen as management initiative or HR initiative. And you could join a well-being lab for your unique need. For example, if you are mother of a 10-month-old child, you could join a well-being lab where you have people dealing with similar situations who figured out how to do it or who are able to extend support to each other. We've even had employees who were living in a similar area, and these were people living in PGs. Some of them were in PGs and some were not. People have cooked for each other and delivered food to each other without any intervention from the organization. I mean, these are self-sustaining labs which function on their own. I also want to call out something that we again did for leadership, because like some of you who are culture experts know that cultures are normally driven from the top. So a lot of advice, lot of support to the leaders, because what's happening is that a CEO or a senior leader is standing tall and standing strong and giving that confidence to all the employees. But he or she is also human. He or she is also having those fears inherently. And who do they bounce off their fears with? How do they seek support? And it's not easy for a CEO, for example, to stand up and say, hey, I need support and I'm feeling scared. So we created sort of exclusive support mechanisms for these leaders that they could fall back on, and at the same time utilize those mechanisms to extend that support to their team. So what I learned, I pass it on to my team. For sure, we've had the yoga labs and the meditation labs and all of that, which I know many organizations have done probably very, very efficiently as well. But I think the point has been for us about support to the leaders, support, internal support mechanisms that we have built in to complement the external support mechanisms that we've had, to make sure that the fear is addressed. And like I said, the fear is not only about that, my health will get impacted. The fear is also about that as a field engineer, I'm going to a customer site, I will touch something, I may get infected and I will infect my family. And we've had an unfortunate incident where, both husband and wife were infected and both didn't survive in the initial phases of the pandemic, when doctors were still grappling with, how to deal with the situation. So those situations where the fear was so strong, and I remember at the peak of lockdown, actually the fear was very, very strong, and we had maximum number of hits on our support panel, on our employee assistance program support panel. And in fact, the counselors there were getting stressed out hearing the stories that they were listening from our people, and we had a chat with them, and that's when we evolved this internal mechanism to say, those counselors also have limited capacity, and what are we making the most optimum use of their time and their support? Because if I'm engaging with a counselor, and very practically, I may sound a bit harsh, but if I'm engaging with a counselor for, let's say, a small stress that I have had today, and I'm engaging the counselor for 15 minutes, maybe I'm eating into the time of somebody else who's in queue, who needs far more intense support at that point in time. And that's where these internal counselors came in very, very handy.
Thank you so much, Shikha. Sorry, I'm probably interrupting. Are we on time, or we need to wrap up now? I just wanted to check with Arghya.
We are out of time. I would request you to take a closing statement from all the speakers, please.
Sure. I think maybe I can do that part, Arghya. I think the themes that came out is very much consistent across all organizations, despite them being across industries. And please let me know if I've missed out. We spoke about digital transformation. We spoke about employee well-being. Shikha gave wonderful examples of how, in fact, that leadership intervention where leaders can go and reach out to for counseling, that's a fantastic part. Ajay, you spoke about how you, quote unquote, made arrangements, like how you engaged entire location to make their work arrangement, and that's wonderful. Shweta, you spoke about how you have really, used AI to even map your talent landscape and the kind of upskilling that you have to do. Seema, you spoke about the incentives, insurances. So the other common theme that emerged is the HR digitalization part. to enable, to mainly target the employee benefits, the organizational effectiveness, and all of that. So I think this has been a very, very enriching discussion. Thank you so much.